Many states are looking at allowing voters to mail in ballots, and some have already ramped up their efforts during primaries. Joining me now is former Secretary of State for Washington, Sam Reed. Secretary, thank you very much for joining us. Let's talk a little bit about some of the perils of mail-in voting, specifically fraud. We've seen all the stories about boxes and boxes of ballots left in mailrooms or even in trash bins. Tell us about the fraud that could happen.
Well, if they are well organized and if they know what they're doing, that will not happen. Because actually, vote by mail is a very good system if you're well organized, if you know what you're doing, and the people are well trained. We really haven't had any problems of fraud here in the state of Washington.
But there are instances of some fraud taking place. We all know the stories of certain amount of people who may have been registered who've passed away, and there's still somehow their ballot gets into the process. Is that mail-in voting? Let's do it this. Let me ask you this. Tell me the difference between mail-in voting and absentee voting.
Mail voting is when the elections office mails out ballots to everybody in the jurisdiction that they're eligible to vote in. Absentee ballots, they have to actually apply for the ballot, and then the elections administrators mail it to them.
So do you not see the opportunity for fraud with mail-in voting when there are so many things that have to go right to basically get everyone a ballot if they want to mail their ballot in?
Well, what we have done in the state of Washington, and I think in Oregon and some of the others as well, is we've set up a system. For example, you mentioned deaths. Well, we set up a system with the Social Security Administration to get their master death index with our state health department and such. So we really have up-to-date information on people who have died. And in terms of moving, we also have a working relationship with the post office, but also we're part of a system that connects in with a number of databases, which establishes establishes addresses.
Is there a savings for mail-in voting? In other words, you need fewer voting places, you need fewer voting election officials. Is it cheaper for mail-in voting?
Well, it really depends upon how well you're organized and what your system is. But in fact, I found there was a significant savings. So that is one of the arguments for it. But the one that I, as a Republican, really cared about was it allowed for a more informed electorate. Rather than walking the polling site and seeing candidates down the ballot they'd never heard of or issues, they have time to look at it, to read up, to look at websites, and in our state, look at voters' pamphlets to cast a more informed ballot.
Sam, I only have about a half a minute or so. Give us your former Secretary of State for the state of Washington. Talk to the other secretaries of state around the country. What do they need to look out for if they choose to go that way?
They need to realize you can't turn on a dime. You have to be really well organized. I urge them to contact the states of Washington and Oregon and find out how you need to set up your system. You need to have more space. You need to have better trained election administrators. And in our case, we use the State Patrol to train them on how to look for a valid signature.
All right, we're going to leave it right there. Former Secretary of State of Washington, Sam Reed, thank you for your time.